right, good evening. Everybody, looks like some people are already in here. Let me jump on my computer here and make sure that I am actually in frame. Yeah, it looks pretty good. That I am actually in frame. I can actually think I can go ahead and bring this down just a little bit. And okay, I think we're good. So good evening, YouTube and everybody. I've got my delicious Superior light beer, being Michelob Ultra. It's not really that superior, but it's what I drink now. John, hello. CCCNC, hello. Winston, hello. All right, so as people are going in and jumping in here, it looks like we've already got a decent amount of people. Doug, hello. Sedge Tool, hello. Jerry, what's going on? Jamie, hello. Joe, hello. Hello, everybody. Monday meetup by Woodworking Whiskers Ash, hello. All right, so cool. People are going and jumping in. Real quick, before I go ahead and get into the questions that I do have, I don't have a lot. So if you guys have questions here on YouTube, please do not hesitate to go ahead and leave them in there, and I will go through and start answering those questions. But I kind of want to give you guys a little overview of what I did today, and I actually have some pretty big news that I want to talk about with the joiner planer combo, which I think might be beneficial to somebody that's in this room. So today, right? So I went and saw my good buddy Sedge do a Festool demo over at a place called Mueller in Cincinnati. And it was really, really, really cool. And he's in here now, so it kind of makes it strange that I'm going to talk him up a little bit. But seeing him do the demonstrations in person is pretty cool, and it's pretty exciting. And he's very, 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 very good at his job. And the entire time I'm up there, you know, watching him go through the demonstration, he primarily talked about the domino, because it seems like that's what everybody wants to know about from Festool, is the domino. And he basically ran through like everything you need to know in the basics level, and then kind of started to go into a little bit more detailed stuff. But it was really, really interesting. And I think the overall demonstration was really cool. So if you guys ever get a chance to go to a Festool demo, especially one led by Sedge, then I would definitely recommend that, because every single time I see him do something, I like to think that I know a pretty decent amount about Festool, but every time I'm around him and I watch him do demonstrations, I realize that I don't know the tools nearly as good as I probably should. And that's fine. But every single video, every single live that he does on Festool on their channel, no matter what the tool is, I learn something. Even if it's something I feel like I'm really, really keen on and I know a lot about, every single time I learn something new. So pretty cool getting to see that today. And it just made me wish that I was up there doing that as well, because you know, I like being in front of people and teaching people stuff, and you can tell he does too. So pretty cool experience today. And I got to meet some really cool people, which is always fun and exciting every time I get to go to one of those things and meet people. It's still kind of strange to me that people are excited to meet me. I'm just as excited to meet those people, so it's kind of a cool dynamic. But I had a really good time today. Mueller in Cincinnati, a really cool store too. If you guys are in the Cincinnati area and you want to go find some like really quality woodworking tools, that's the place to go, because they have all kinds of great stuff. They don't carry any lumber, not that I saw, but they have a very, very wide variety of tools. And something interesting that I didn't even know existed. So most of you guys know that I have the Nova drill press, and it's a really, really cool drill press. And soon I'll do a video on it, because so many people have been asking me to do that. But I didn't know that Powermatic actually makes a very, and I'm not going to get rid of my Nova, but Powermatic owns, you know, guys know I used to have the Powermatic drill press, which I loved. I just didn't want to move it with me because it's such a beast of a drill press. And I wanted to downsize a little bit. Well, they actually have a floor standing version that is very similar to the Nova, the design, which I thought was really interesting, because I didn't even know that that existed. I'm walking around the store and I'm like, what the heck is this thing? And it was pretty cool. But yeah, really good time. I'm not going to waste too much time talking about that. If you guys are in the Cincinnati area, go check out Mueller. A lot of really good supplies. I did want to address something that I posted about in my stories yesterday. Actually, something I posted in my stories about yesterday. And the other one I'll actually talk about because it gets with one of the questions that I was asked. But I went and had to get plywood yesterday. So I feel like most everybody knows now that I see that question, Sedge Tool, do you have a channel? He does, and it's called Sedge Tool. Recently started. It's fantastic, and it's going to be a great channel. You guys should definitely go check that out and subscribe. I needed plywood, and for all of my hardwood now, I'm using Hartzell Hardwoods. They are now a sponsor of my channel, and they have provided me with a bunch of walnut for some upcoming projects, some white oak for some upcoming projects, and I've partnered with them. And so I don't have any need for hardwood lumber anywhere in the area, but something I still do have a need for is plywood. And so I've kind of been struggling, and I know a provider in Indiana, and I could have got the plywood from them, but the problem is it's a couple hours away. I really wanted to get it yesterday because today or tomorrow I actually want to continue working on the wine cabinet, which we'll talk about a little bit here in a minute. But I didn't want to drive 2 hours to get the plywood because all I needed is a single sheet of 1/2-inch walnut ply and a single sheet of 1/2-inch Baltic birch. And so obviously you can't go to one of the home stores, at least in my area, and get either one of these things. So I went to this other location. And I ended up getting the 2 sheets of plywood. And the 2 sheets of plywood cost me about $207. 4x8 1/2-inch walnut and a 5x5 1/2-inch Baltic birch. And I'm not going to dive super deep into that, but I did find a plywood supplier, and they do have a very good selection, and I will talk about what that supplier is here in just a little bit for those of you that are in the area. But the reason why I don't want to dive too deep into it now is because it goes with something that I talked about in my stories today that I want to share with you guys, but it's tied to a question that I got. So I just wanted to bring that up. That's something I'm going to talk about today. The other thing, the jointer planer combo. So I am going to be getting the A341 from Felder, the hammer A341 from Felder, here in the next couple of weeks. And I'm still waiting on some clarification on whether or not somebody else is going to be purchasing the machine. More to follow. However, if you're somebody that is local, relatively local, and by local I mean you would be willing to drive here to Indiana, the Indianapolis area, and you're interested in purchasing this A326, which is literally 3 months old, please send me a DM and let me know. It's all hinging on whether or not somebody else is going to purchase it. I've talked to Felder, and they have agreed to let me sell this thing for $3,500 for the jointer planer combo. Now, with that being said, this is a $4,800 package with everything that I have with it. So if you're somebody that's in the market for a 10-inch jointer planer combo from Hammer, please go over to Instagram or send me an email or whatever, and you're willing to drive here to pick it up, send me a DM. And then once I get clarification on whether or not this other individual is going to be purchasing it, I'll just start reaching out to you guys. I wanted to put it out here though, because it's a really good deal. And I was actually very surprised that they were willing to let me go ahead and try to sell it to somebody in my audience. So if that's something that interests you, after this, go over to Instagram, send me a DM, go over to, or find my email. It's on my channel here. Send me an email, and if that is something that you are interested in, please let me know, and we can go from there. But again, really good opportunity to get a fantastic machine that is barely used for a really, really, really good price. Basically for the price of what it would cost you to get, you know, a single, 15-inch planer. You're going to have the joining and planing capabilities with all the accessories that come with it. So really impressed with this machine. Super excited to get the new one in here, but I wanted to put that out there. More to follow on that. What else? I I think that is it. What I've got going on in the shop right now, I've been working on the wine cabinet. There will be plans. I got a lot of questions about that. There will be plans, and there will be a YouTube video at some point. Obviously, I still have a long ways to go on this. Update on the floating nightstands. There will be a video on that. There also will be plans on that, and there will be an article and some other stuff, and that should hopefully be all ready to go before the end of the year. So just kind of finishing up a few last minute things with that, and we'll go from there. So it's going to be pretty cool. Now, I'm going to go ahead and get into the questions because I've got some questions from Patreon. I've got some questions. I got a question via email. I don't even think that he knows I'm going to answer this via email, but I do want to talk about it. And then also I got some questions from Instagram, and then whatever questions I have in here, and we'll go through. And when we're done, we're done. So first question over on Patreon is from Brian Roberts. And he says, when using the LR32 system, you've mentioned having a balanced system, divisible by 32. Does it need to be an even number, odd number, or does that matter? So what he's talking about is a balanced panel, which means the panel is in an increment of 32 millimeters. And the reason why that's so important is because if you're using the LR32 system, the indexing stops that are on the rail are all indexed off of a 32 millimeter system. So if you have a balanced panel, then when you place that on there, it doesn't matter what direction you're facing, it fits on the panel perfectly and it does not shift. So it doesn't matter what edge you're referencing, it just makes things a lot easier. So you're not having to try to figure out what edge. You're always having to reference the same edge, which can cause problems once you flip it around and everything else. So by having a balanced panel, it doesn't matter. I actually had a really interesting conversation about this today at Mueller, and some people who think that that's ridiculous and why would you need to do that? You do it because it's designed to do that, and it makes things a million times easier. In terms of being divisible by 32, yes, and it's always going to be an even number if it's a multiple of 32. So if it was an odd number, it wouldn't be a multiple of 32, because 32, even number, it's divisible by 2. Anything else, no matter how many times you multiply it, it's always going to be an even number. So if it's a true balanced panel on the 32 millimeter system, it is going to be an even number, at least the way my mind works, right? So if you have a balanced panel, it just makes everything work a lot easier with the LR32 system specifically and for what it's designed for. So another question over on Patreon, Joe Gregory asked me, hello Jason, considering a new quiet air compressor, how is your California Air Tools working out for you, pros and cons? It's fantastic, and to be honest with you, I don't have any cons about it. I have no reason to have any con. I bought it a long time ago because I had the Porter Cable pancake compressor, the red one, and it's ridiculously loud, and I was so tired of it that I said, I'm going to get one of these California Air Tools air compressors for a few $100s. Everybody talks about how quiet they are. And I got it and I was immediately impressed, and it absolutely is as quiet as they say it is. Now, if it was to turn on right now, you would hear it, but it would be nothing compared to anything else. In my last shop, I actually had it in my, inside of my assembly table, so you could really barely hear it when it was on. I don't have any cons. I've had zero problems with it. It is a fantastic air compressor. It is quiet, it is small, it is light, and it does everything that I need it to do for my shop. I think there's probably some other options out there in terms of being a quiet air compressor, but when I was doing my research, California Air Tools just had a really good reputation, and that's why I decided to go with them. This is a question I got from another Patreon supporter named David. He asked me, or he said he was intrigued. So yesterday I talked about in my Instagram stories, this is another thing I want to talk about, as you guys see behind me, please don't mind the bottle of wine that is in my shop. Matter of fact, there's multiple bottles of wine. I was using these for scale, basically, for the wine credenza that I'm building right now. So they're staying in here. A lot of people have been asking me, like, what do you need bottles of wine for in your shop? Are you having some kind of party? No, they're for the project. My miter saw station. So I'm really happy with the miter saw station. Don't have a bunch of complaints. There are a few things that I would like to change. So I actually think I'm going to be going a different route and building something different. Mainly because for me, I'm pretty tall and I actually want this to sit up higher. So what I want to do is just have one flat surface all the way across. And then I also want to take advantage of the space that is above my dust collector right now because it can be underneath. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to build a different miter saw station with some cabinets, and I'm just going to lift this up a little bit, and I'm going to create one long run that goes directly across and actually gives me storage space above the dust collector, which I'm pretty excited about. I think it'll be pretty cool. And that was actually always the plan, is to have some sort of top, but because I ended up going with the Rockler stands for this application, I can only get them so tall because they're already fixed. So they're a little bit too close for what I want to do. So I'm going to raise these up. And then I'm going to raise the miter saw up a little bit so it's on one platform. And then I'm going to add the extension wings from Festool on both sides of the miter saw and keep them back a little bit from the fence. Because again, I don't care so much about having a fence. And this is why this has no fence on the miter saw, because this is the only one I care about. And the nice thing about the Festool ones is I can adjust them in here, so I can offset that fence behind this fence, because this is the only one that I truly care about. So that's something that I'm going to do. It's not going to happen anytime soon, but his question had to do with my Capex has been in a UG stand since I bought it. Now that I have space for a permanent miter saw setup, I want to incorporate the UG wings into the design. Have you seen or found a design you'd be willing to share? I don't have any specific designs for that I've seen. I just have an idea in my mind, so you'll kind of see it as I go along, but I would be happy to share that with you. And I'm going to respond to this in case you're not watching this, and we can talk about it more over on Patreon, and I can kind of give you some ideas of some things that I'm thinking about. All right, getting into... Sorry, I'm just reading some of the notes here. Getting into the questions over on Patreon, I'm going to go ahead and start. A lot of these are kind of just comments, some funny ones. So we'll just bang through these real quick, and then I'll start answering questions here. So Sprotten Work says, you have too many tools. Can I have them? Best regards from Germany. No, you cannot have them. Ash Take 3, this is my good buddy Ashley, Woodworking Whiskers. Can the U.S. Army infiltrate Instagram? Asking for a friend. They probably can. Wrist Below Zero. His question is, how did you get into woodworking? Also, is this profitable or more so a hobby? Okay, so I've obviously talked about how I got into woodworking many times before, and I have YouTube videos that kind of discuss that, so I'll give you the Cliff Notes version. Wife asked me to build a table, I did, and I was obsessed, and that's how I got into woodworking, and that was less than 5 years ago. In terms of is this profitable or more of a hobby, it's absolutely profitable in a lot of different ways. When I was doing this as a business, yes, it was profitable. Now that I'm doing this still as a business, but I'm not doing client work anymore, it's absolutely profitable. And there's a lot of different ways that you can generate revenue doing this, whether you choose to do custom client builds or you choose to do the social media side. And it really just depends on what you want to do, and it's absolutely profitable. And it is also a hobby because this is not my full-time job. Wimmer.Aaron, he says, I'm guessing you went to Northwest Lumber for your walnut plywood, 1/2 inch at $140. This is where I wanted to go back to what I was saying. So yes, the place that I went to around here that I was talking about has a really good selection of plywood. Basically any plywood that I would ever need, which is the only reason I would go there. Any plywood that I would need, they pretty much are going to have it, right? Their prices are expensive. The 1/2 inch sheet of 1/2 inch walnut ply that I got was $140. Here's where I want to talk about something that I encountered today, right? So on my way back from Cincinnati, anybody that listens to, I talked about this in my stories today, anybody that listens to Wood Talk with the Wood Whisperer, Mark Spagnolo, Matt Cremona, and Shannon Rogers, they used to do a thing on there called the Lumber Industry Update, because Shannon Rogers works for a pretty prominent lumber supplier in the United States. And he is like the wizard when it comes to lumber stuff. And it's a podcast that I've known it has existed for a while. I've always wanted to start. And today I was like, hey, you know what? I'm going to start listening to this. Well, I started at the newest episode, and it works its way back. And I listened to 3 episodes back to back to back. And in these episodes, he talked about plywood. And he basically, I mean, the amount of knowledge that this man has, Shannon Rogers, you can find him, he's the Renaissance Woodworker on Instagram, and he also, if you Google the hand tool school, he has a whole thing that he does. He's a real big hand tool guy. But the amount of knowledge that this guy has on the lumber industry, period, because that's his day job, the fact that he broke plywood down into 3 episodes, which is not even the tip of the iceberg. I learned more about plywood today than I think I probably would have learned in a lifetime. And I have a much, much better understanding of what goes into plywood, how it's made, what it means, what the cores are, all of this stuff. It's just a fantastic thing. And the reason why I'm talking about this with this question is because the comment was, I'm guessing you went to Northwest Lumber for your walnut plywood 1/2 inch at $140. So when I was guilty of this yesterday too. I was looking at it, I'm like, God, it's so expensive. After listening to his podcast, I don't care that I spent $140 on that sheet of plywood now. It's an A1 grade walnut ply. It is beautiful, right? Absolutely beautiful, wonderful quality. He was explaining why plywoods are priced in different prices. You go to one store and it's this much, and you go to another store and it's $50 cheaper, or $40 cheaper, or $30 cheaper. And he basically was saying there's a reason for that. Here's what the reasons might be. And he started explaining how they can skip certain steps in the process of creating the plywood that will save money. And that step might be the quality control. That step may be running the sheets through the roller faster so the glue is thinner, which therefore means it's not going to have as good of an adhesion. It's still going to get the job done, but it's not going to be the same as a top quality plywood. And so the more things that you're doing and the more things that you don't skip, the more time it takes to produce that material. The more time it takes to produce that material, the more of a cost it's going to be. The faster you can get it done, the less it can be. And then he had this absolutely remarkable point about, us as Americans want to complain about import plywood from China and how the plywood is trash, it's garbage, it's crappy, it's, $50 for a sheet of plywood and it sucks. Yeah, because we asked for it. And that was like this light bulb that went off in my head. And I'm like, holy crap, I never thought of that before. It is because of this, the market that we created. We complained about the more expensive sheets of plywood. So what did the United States do? They said, hey, China, we need you to create a sheet of plywood that is going to be at this price point. Well, how do they create it at that price point? Granted, yes, they obviously have less money in terms of wages that they have to pay, but what else can they do to make the process faster, easier, to produce more, to sell more, to make a good profit? But we basically said as America, hey, we need you to make a sheet of plywood for $50. They're making us a sheet of plywood for $50. Is it the same quality as a $140 sheet of plywood? Absolutely not. And so I never thought about it that way. And I just thought it was really interesting. So I cannot stress enough, if you have any interest on finding any information out about the lumber industry, why wood is priced the way it is, how board feet are calculated, what board feet are, literally anything you could ever want to know about the lumber industry, it is mind-blowing. There was just so much information that he was talking about. It was actually hard to keep up. But my eyes are just open now. It's just like anything else, right? You can buy the really, really, really inexpensive version of a tool, or you can spend the additional money and get the really good version of a tool. How do they make it less expensive? Well, they put less expensive equipment inside of it. They put less expensive parts, accessories, all of that stuff. How do the more expensive ones made? They make less of them, takes longer to make them, but they're selling for a higher price and they're much more reliable. Same thing applies with plywood because it is a It is a material that is made by machines and a human being, and it is QA/QC'd by human beings or machines in many cases. So anyways, it just kind of opened up my eyes on a lot of things. And one of the other things that was really, really cool is he talks about, you know, the people always ask the question, how do you know when to use plywood versus hardwood? And he really goes in depth talking about, well, it depends on what you're trying to do. And then he's talking about if you're doing this, and you might want to look at this type of veneer and that type of veneer and this type of core and that type of core. And it's mind-blowing. So it's called the Lumber Industry Update. It's on all platforms. I don't know Shannon. I've never spoken to Shannon until today after I mentioned it on Instagram. He sent me a message saying thank you. I've never met him, and it's just a really, really good podcast packed full of information about something that I'm passionate about. I would assume that most of you guys are passionate about it. So if you really want to learn a lot about lumber and understand things a little bit better, I would highly recommend that. Anyways, I know I went on a tangent there. It's just really good information, and that kind of stuff I really like. So I wanted to share that with you guys. Next question. The next two are about food. They're kind of funny, friends of mine. So Jay Bates, most of you guys know Jay Bates. He asks, you guys all know that he's like into grilling and all that stuff. His question is ribs or steak? For me, it's steak all the way. That's an easy answer, Jay. Patrick over at Leather by Dragonfly asks, what's the best hamburger you've had? The ones that I recently cooked on my new Traeger, hands down. Troy Christopher, if you could only, this is something we've talked about a few times here too. I actually had a really good conversation about this earlier. If you could only invest in one of the two Festool dominoes, which one would it be? That's really easy for me to answer. The short version is Domino 500 all day long, every day. I now have both in my shop, and I haven't even, well, I take that back. I don't have both yet. The other one's coming. But I will have both in my shop, and I will still grab the DF 500 99.5% of the time. I have never been in a situation in my shop with the Domino 500 where I said, I can't do this because I don't have a Domino 700. Now, with that being said, if you are somebody, I actually heard Sedge talking about this today too, but it's the same way that I feel. If you're somebody that's doing a lot of slab work with really big, thick woods, if you're doing massively huge tables, if you're doing doors, interior doors, exterior doors, stuff like that with actual hardwood lumber, full hardwood doors, then a Domino 500 or Domino 700 is probably going to be a more beneficial tool for you. However, the 500 is probably going to be more suitable for most people. And then real quickly, before I go to my last question that I have there, before I start answering these, one of the most common questions that I get is, should I get the 700 or the 500? And I tell everybody the same thing every single time. Get the 500 if you're doing these things. If you're doing these things, the 700 might be more beneficial to you. And 9 times out of 10, they always run out and say, well, I bought the 700 because I didn't want to feel like I didn't get enough, and I'll just get the adapters. Here's the deal with that, right? Seneca does make a set of adapters. You can put those adapters on the Domino 700 and use it for the same capabilities pretty much that the Domino 500 has. There's 2 problems with that. First problem is Festool theoretically does not have to warranty anything if you break the machine using an adapter that is not a Festool thing. So that's why I always steer people away from that. Not that there's anything wrong with the Seneca adapters, you just have to understand it's like any other thing. You know, if you get a car and you decide to put some kind of air intake that is not a factory air intake, as soon as you do that, if your engine blows up, you know, Toyota doesn't have to honor the warranty because you broke the engine because you did something different, if that makes sense. So that's one thing to think about. The second thing to think about is that the Domino 500 and the Domino 700 are 2 extremely different tools in the sense that one is very large, the other one is very small. And so for me, I much rather am going to reach for the thing that is much easier to use, much lighter in most applications. So just keep that in mind. I'm a firm believer that, and some people disagree with me on this, I think it's nice to have both. I don't think one replaces the other. but I think that 9 out of 10 people can get by with the Domino 500, no problem, never regret it, and eventually get to a point where they're like, I'd like to try some other things, and I think a Domino 700 would allow that, which is exactly why I wanted the Domino 700. It's not that I'm doing anything in my shop where I'm like, I can't do this because I don't have it. It's, I'd like to do this, and I think that tool would actually help. So that's just my thoughts on the Domino stuff. A very, very common question that I get. Okay, last one over on Instagram, I'm gonna start jumping in here. Built for the missus. Says, thoughts on Mirka sanders? I don't have any thoughts on them because I like Festool sanders. Speaking of that, more specifically, the new sander that I just got, full disclosure, Festool did send me this sander. It's something I've used a lot. The reason I want to talk about this is the ETS EC 150/5. I'm holding it up here and waiting, which means it is the 6-inch pad, 150 millimeter pad, and a 5 millimeter stroke. And Sedge is actually the one that really broke this down for me. I always wondered what's the difference between the 3 and the 5. Think of the 3 of 3-stroke, you're sanding finishes, and 5-stroke sanding wood, right? So for me, I've always thought that this was kind of the best all around if you could only buy one sander. And I got a 5-minute Friday that I'm gonna be doing here soon, kind of comparing some of the sanders because it's a very common question that I get. I'd like to share my thoughts with you guys. And let me just tell you, this thing is awesome. I absolutely love it. And I got to use it on the wine project that I'm doing now, and it solved a problem for me. And then now, of course, this is the one, this is what got it all started for me with Festool, and that's the ETS 125. And I'm actually gonna be holding on to this for when the new edge sanding attachment comes out because it is compatible and made for this sander. And so when I get that, this will only be an edge sanding sander at that point. But I cannot recommend their sander. I have 4 different Festool sanders. I've got the ETS 125, ETS EC 150/5. I've got the Rotex 125, and I've got the Rotex 90. Out of all of these, this is by far my favorite one. I've never used a Mirka. I don't have any interest in using a Mirka. I know a lot of people that have the Mirka and they think it's a fantastic sander. The way I look at it is I'm very happy with what I have, so there's honestly no reason, for me to stray away from that. I don't think you'd be disappointed either way. Based on what I know about the Mirka sanders, it's a really good product. I have firsthand experience with this, really good product. So it wouldn't be right of me to, tell you a bunch of stuff that I don't know about the Mirka. So it's a really common question I get. Never used it, don't plan on using it. Really happy with what I have. And I would tell you, I actually just had this conversation today on Instagram with somebody. They were asking me the difference between the two. I don't have any experience, but I don't think you'd be disappointed either way, but I definitely don't think you'd be disappointed with the Festool. And that's based on my experience. Okay, so that's all the questions that I have there. Let's go ahead and get into some of the questions here. On YouTube, Doug, just so you know, if you're still in here, I did see your comment on YouTube, and I'll definitely get that stuff over to you, what you requested. Okay, so first one is from Fernando. Table saw, what table saw do you recommend for beginners? Depends, tool questions are always so difficult. Depends on how much space you have. If you don't have a lot of space, there's some good contractor saws out there. DeWalt makes a good one. Bosch makes a pretty good one. I had a Rigid. It was fine. If you have the space, I think a very reasonably priced saw for the money, and I actually owned one, and I thought it was really good, is the Rigid R4512. If you have the space for a more permanent saw, I think that's a pretty good starting point. I think you get it for like $600, maybe a little bit more expensive now, but some of those really good contractor saws are like $400. So you spend a couple $100 more bucks, get a little bit larger of a saw. Hello from Vermont. Hello from Toronto, Canada. Let's see. Leather by Dragonfly, DSI in Indianapolis. We already talked about that. So I haven't gone to DSI yet. I plan on it, but so here's my issue with some of these big major retailers, right? So you always run into the issue of, you know, the little guy calling to order some stuff. I actually talked about DSI today while at this event. And there's another company here, Aetna Plywood, and I've had a very difficult time trying to call and order something from them and get something in will call at a very small scale, because a lot of these companies are used to selling hundreds of sheets of plywood a day to a company. So that makes it a little bit frustrating, a little bit difficult. This is really wanted to make a short trip, buy a couple sheets of plywood. And again, my mind about the materials is a little bit different now, you know, especially after listening to that podcast. It's not necessarily that I'm looking for the cheapest solution, because that plywood is probably, if it's dramatically cheaper, it's probably going to be dramatically cheaper for a reason. Not saying that I always want to pay $140 and that the $100 sheet of plywood is going to be way worse quality or even something that I would even notice, but I just look at things differently now, and I have a lot more knowledge moving forward to make those determinations, and actually can look at maybe what the manufacturer is, what process they go through, and kind of have a better idea of, you know, why there's a difference in that price. So I actually found quite a few, I guess, local places. I'm in a group on Instagram that is a bunch of local woodworkers, and they were very helpful in the process. I didn't even know Northwest Lumber existed, but now I know a place, if I need something in a pinch, I can drive 30 minutes and go get that material. Joey Sawdust, I think the new Powermatic drill press is really new. I just saw it myself about 5 days ago and was equally surprised. Yeah, I'd never seen it before. I thought the only drill press they had was the one that I had. So maybe they're hopping on board with some of that new technology that Nova's been using in their drill presses. Matter of fact, it actually looked very, very similar to, I have the Viking, which is the benchtop version. The other one, I can't remember what the name of it is, Voyager maybe? For some reason, I feel like that name is right. The Voyager, which is their floor standing model, looked very, very similar to that, just Powermatic. And you know what? I actually wouldn't be surprised if it's a lot of the same, exact same technology, because if you guys noticed, Mark Spagnolo's CNC machine, if you guys know who the Wood Whisperer is, Mark Spagnolo's CNC machine is exactly the same CNC machine pretty much that I have, because it's an Axiom. I'm pretty sure it's the same company. I don't know how all that works, but I'm fairly certain that that CNC machine is the exact same thing as my AR8 Pro. Because the first time I saw it, I'm like, that looks exactly like my CNC machine. And I found out today through a conversation that that is the case. So I thought that was pretty interesting. Toolnator, great to meet you today in Cincinnati. You and Sedge are great guys. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate that. Someone needs to snag that. Esty, my brother loves your videos. Can you please say hi, Madi? I don't know if it's Monty or Madi. Hi, Madi. Or hi, Monty, whichever one it is. But yes, hello. How did Toolnator know you were in Cincinnati? Well, I did on my, I guess you're asking me, I did stories. I actually think I see this. He announced it in stories on Instagram. Yeah, so if you guys ever want to know like what I'm doing every day, I am very, very active on Instagram stories. I mean, that's really, to be completely honest with you, one of the only reasons I'm even on Instagram, or why I even care about Instagram at this point anymore, is because I have a large audience there. The majority of those people never see anything that I post, because that's just the way that Instagram is. Same thing with YouTube at this point. I do stories almost every single day, and some would even argue that I do too many stories, but I just love getting on there and doing like I'm doing now and sharing information with everybody and letting everybody know what I'm doing on a daily basis. I like it, right? I like to share what I'm doing. It gets me excited. I like to answer people's questions over there. So if you're not following me on Instagram, head over there, Ben's Woodworking, and just watch my stories, because every single day, like tomorrow I'm going to be out here working for a good period of time probably, And you better believe that I'm gonna have a lot of stories going over the project that I'm currently building. So if you ever wanna know what I'm doing at any given time, definitely head over to my stories because I do a lot of them. What's IG? Instagram. Yeah, my wife even answered that. And I'm glad to see my wife is in here. What's up? Sorry I'm late. Big Willie's Garage. It's okay. I say the same with the Scotch bottles in the workshop. No one believes me either. That's funny. I better not drink my wife's German wine. Don't worry, honey, I won't, because you know I'm not a big fan of wine. Chad Hibbs. What's up, Chad? Do you have any aspirations or plans to do a podcast? Yes to both. I have a lot of aspirations to do a podcast, and I have had plans to do a podcast for probably 2 years with two very good friends of mine, actually. And it's hard getting going, but it is in the works right now, so more to follow. I would love to do it, absolutely love to do it. I love being on podcasts, and I really enjoy talking to these two individuals and sharing some good information. Rome, Italy, hello. John Decker, Shannon did a whole episode on marine grade plywood earlier in his podcast. Yeah, I'm gonna have to take a listen to that one. Jamie Webb, hi from the UK. Great to be here and learning so much. I'm very happy to hear that, Jamie. Thank you for jumping on. Sedge Tool, I'm bummed I missed you today. I was there yesterday and couldn't make it today. Jerry from GA Woodshop asks, Sedge, are you coming to Chicago anytime soon? Hopefully he will. Not able to travel to Chicago yet. Yeah, I need a real beer, Jim. Yeah, I'm aware. It's funny, I used to be an IPA guy, but it tastes pretty good now. I swore I would never start drinking this, but that's what I'm drinking now. Okay, now we're getting into when I was talking about the domino stuff. I use my 500 10 times more than my 700. Ron H, I'm really enjoying the video. First one I've been to catch live. That's awesome. All right, looks like we are getting close to the end. Jamie Chrisman, need to upgrade your beer. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, Jamie, you're the one that won the Craig little jig that I did. Matter of fact, I feel like I had something else that I wanted to do a giveaway for. I do. Hold on. All right, that's nothing major. However, this is very near and dear to my heart. This is a Bent's Woodworking original, and I was thinking about it the other day. And I said, you know what, I think this would probably be a pretty cool thing to give away. I've had this for a very long time. It's one of my favorite tools that I use in the shop. Some people might be able, somebody already wrote 7. Some people might know what it is. So it's not a new item. I will send this to whoever wins here in just a second before I get into these last questions. But you could have one of the OG tools in my shop. This has probably been in my shop longer than any other tool in here. I've switched to a metric version of it, so I no longer need this, and I'm not a very nostalgic person. So what it is it's my Incra Tiny T. This is my original one. It's not an expensive tool. It's like 15 bucks, 20 bucks. But this is my original one. And I really like the idea of being able to do these giveaways on here live. Matter of fact, I think tomorrow maybe I need to spend some time going through and finding some of the things. I like to be able to give back to you guys because if I have stuff in my shop that I'm not using, there's absolutely no point in keeping it in here. And this isn't exactly something that I can, go on Facebook Marketplace and be like, $5 and you can have this. So anyways, here's the deal. If you're still in here, looks like there's 90-something people watching. So we're gonna do a number between 1 and 100. And whoever is closest, you have to be in the United States. I'm gonna say that right now. You have to be in the United States. I'm gonna pay for the shipping for this. You must be in the United States. I'm sorry if you're abroad. I apologize, but if you're abroad, you don't want an imperial measurement tool anyways. This is not metric. So a number 1 through 100, and after I get through some of these other questions and everybody is just piling in with numbers now, I will pick somebody here in just a minute. This is why I like doing this, because this is fun. But there's a couple other questions. Misfit74, hey Jason, hello. Chad, more stories, more stories. I don't think there'll ever be a shortage of stories from me, for sure. Joey Sawdust, regarding plywood, without digging very deep into the manufacturing process, is it safe to assume that more money means better quality? Trust the grading. I would say yes. Just because it's more expensive, though, doesn't always, in every case, make things better. But if you're an A1 grade plywood, and I knew this prior to going into it, but an A1 grade plywood is going to be your most expensive plywood because it is A grade on the front face and it is a 1 grade on the back face, meaning it is the top quality plywood. I even think they even go above that with like premium grade, but it's going to be expensive. Now, if you're paying $150 for a 3/4 inch sheet of plywood that has a D4 grade, just because that's expensive doesn't mean it's great, right? So there's a remarkable difference between plywoods. And the grade talks about the veneer. It doesn't talk about the interior portion of the plywood. An A1 grade means that the front veneer is an A and the rear veneer is a 1. It just has nothing to do with the interior structure. So interesting. If you want to find more information, I'm telling you, I cannot stress enough, not just about plywood, just about lumber in general, but definitely check that out. But typically speaking, yes, it's going to be more expensive. It's going to be a better quality. It's probably gone through a much better quality control process, used better materials, less items were skipped, all that kind of stuff. What kind of camera do you use to record your YouTube live videos? Actually, my YouTube live videos are on my cell phone, and I use an iPhone 10. That's what this is. Previously, I don't use my DSLR. I use a Canon 90D for all of my YouTube videos with a nice lens. But right now, I'm talking to you on my cell phone. And I just have an external microphone. You guys can see right here, external wireless mic from Rode. I have a special adapter that goes into the bottom of the iPhone. So that's why the audio actually sounds pretty good as opposed to all crappy like it used to. John, IG is how people stalk Jason Bent. Misfit74, do you recommend the Incra Super System for repeatable dovetail patterns and box joints router table recommendations? I have the Works package from Incra router table. I haven't done dovetails on it yet. I've done box joints and just about every other routing operation, typical routing operation that you would do. I don't think there's a better system on the market, personally. And one of these days, I'll finally take a day to go over there and actually start cutting dovetails. And it'll probably be one of those things where I'm like, why did I wait so long to do this? Because for me, it has not been a priority, but one of these days I'll do it. I don't think there's anything that has the capabilities that I don't work with Incra. I've never spoken to Incra. They've never sent me a single tool. I paid a good amount of money for that. This is solely my opinion, 100%, which anything I talk about is my opinion. I don't think there's a more capable router table setup on the market, period. Got the DF500 last year. What size tenons do you use the most and why? For a long time, when I was doing a lot of large projects, I would say I used the 8 and the 10 millimeter domino the most because I was doing lots of tabletops, fairly thick tabletops, where the 8 or the 10 basically broke down to a third of the material thickness. And that's just what I used. I would say now I probably use the 5 millimeter domino the most. But I actually don't use the domino as much today as I did before. Not that I don't like it, it's just that it's not always needed in all applications. Where I thought it was before. When you first get a tool, you're like, I got to domino everything. And then you're like, do I really need to domino this? But I would say the 5s I probably use the most. Next to that would probably be the 8. So yeah. Okay. Joe Gonzalez, bingo. Forgot to ask today at Mueller's, did you recommend the Sis accessory set with the Vaxis? Yes, 100%. You're going to love the Vaxis, period. But once you need to start doing thin stock, you're going to wish that you had the different heads. And thankfully, just recently, I ended up getting them. But yeah, it's one of my favorite tools that I have in the shop. It's great. I've tried to find reasons to use it all the time. Okay, holy cow. All right, so I've got lots of numbers here, and it looks like some more questions, which is great. What time are we at right now? 1950, 750 for you civilian folk. I'm just kidding. Okay, so let's see. I know what my number is in my head. I'm going to see who is the closest, or if anybody ended up getting it dead on. Let's see. I don't see one yet. 234. That is not in between 0 and 100. All right, so it looks like, so the number that I had was 60, and I'm trying to see, so Joe Gonzalez, he was 56. Let's see, who else? 56, anything closer than 50s? There's some 68s. Joe Gonzalez, there's his 56 again. Let me scroll down a little bit more. All right, Joe Gonzalez, you are the winner of the Incra Tiny T. There you go. So, Joe, I would ask you, I don't know if you're over on Instagram. If you are, please just send me a DM there with your shipping information, and I'll get this out to you next week. If you're not, you can shoot me an email, bentswoodworking@gmail.com. Please feel free to do that, and you can send me your info, and I will send it to you as soon as possible. All right, so some more questions. So congratulations. Ian Lennon-Hart, pencil or marking device you use and recommend? Very, very easy for me. Let's see if I have one readily available, which I do not, but it is the, oh wait, I might, hold on. Here's one. I use this more and more now for sure, but this is the Pica Dry, and you can get different color leads for it, and it actually comes with a cap. I don't have my little holder that I carry this stuff in normally right now. It's actually inside, but it goes in the cap. There's a little sharpener on it, but these are fantastic. Matter of fact, you're actually going to see these in a YouTube video I'm going to be doing here in the next couple of weeks. It's going to be like a 10 tool video covering just like 10 different things that one maybe you didn't know existed, or just things that I like a lot and use a lot in my shop. So this is actually one of the things that's on there. Leather by Dragonfly, Pentel 0.05 millimeter pencil. That is probably the most commonly used thing, which I also don't have one of those because it's in my little pouch, but yes, also the thing I use, and which is great because you need a 0.05 millimeter pencil for the little tiny holes in this. Incra actually sells one, but 0.05 is always the size that I use for anything, mainly because the thinner the line, the more accurate I'm able to be with if I ever need to line anything up. Ed McLeod, what's going on? I haven't talked to you in quite a while. How much thickness will you take off a board with a planer before deciding to resaw it first? Totally depends on the original thickness of the board. The bigger the board, the more yield I think I'm going to get on the... it also depends on what my final result would need to be. But I'm going to plane it and joint it to make sure I have a square edge and face. So as soon as I get a square edge and face, then I'll take it over and use the bandsaw to resaw it down to what I need. It just gives me a nice stable platform and a square reference. So it really could be any size. If I have a 1/2 inch piece and I want to make it, 2 1/8 inch, smaller, pieces from that, I'll use a very small piece as long as I have one clean face and one clean edge to give me that perfect 90 as I'm pushing it through the bandsaw. And then I'll go a little bit oversized, and then I usually run it through my drum sander to get it down to its final thickness. Ray, damn. Misfit 74, 4x8 sheets of Baltic birch are $76 in my area. That's my preferred. That sounds about right. I paid $56, I want to say, for the 5x5 ½ inch, and I think a 5x5 3/4 inch was right around 70, 75 bucks, somewhere around there. Rewatched your, this is from Sean Armstrong. Rewatched your G700 video recently, leaning towards buying one, still happy with it. Man, this is a question that I've been getting a lot lately. And so just so you guys know, I have a YouTube video going live tomorrow talking about doing through dominoes, which is funny because that was the actual Festool Live that just happened. And I almost released my video Friday, and then I watched the Festool Live, and I was like, oh, I'm going to hold off on this a little bit. So, yes, I'm 100% pleased with it. I have no complaints about it. I'm glad that I got it, and I've talked to so many people. Tomorrow's going to be one YouTube video. Next week is going to be my overview video of the Harvey now that I've had it for about 6 months. And spoiler alert, I still love it, and I would recommend it. If you want to know more about it, please do not hesitate to send me an email or to send me a DM over on Instagram. I have fielded so many questions about that machine, and so many people have ended up buying it, which is fantastic. So if you have any additional questions specifically about it before I release this video, don't hesitate to send me a message. I'd be happy to help. I am also an affiliate for them. I do earn a commission if people buy one through my link. So I'll provide that for you if you do choose to buy it. If not, great. If you buy it and you don't want to use the link, I don't really care. But if you do want help making that decision, please do not hesitate to reach out to me. Man. Misfit 74, looking forward to more videos on the Inca routing system. Seems to be best on the market. I agree. On the verge of buying one, debating building my own tabletop and stand. I mean, if that's, I don't know. Some people are really into like building, you know, router tables. I think the stand part's a really cool idea, but for me, it just makes more sense to just buy the top and everything that comes with it because it's designed for it. And the Incra is a little bit different because the Incra sits differently than traditional router tables do. So I'm actually going to be rebuilding the base for mine. And matter of fact, when I repurpose one of these stands for the miter saw station, I don't want to get rid of the stands. These Rockler stands are awesome. I'm actually going to use one of these so it kind of matches everything else that I have in my shop, and I'm going to build a new cabinet underneath. And then I'm just going to use the original, the top that's on it. It's actually going to give me a lot more storage than the one that's currently on there. Ron H. Sedge Tool, I just found your channel 2 to 3 weeks ago. Love the channel. And Jason, your channel and Jason's are my 2 favorite channels. Thank you so much, Ron. Jamie, have you ever seen the MLCS router lift? Any thoughts? I'm looking to get one of those soon. I have not. Now I see a bunch of people guessing 60 after I announced the winner. Let's see, Joe Gonzalez, congratulations, Joe. I got one because of this channel. Is your Incra, Misfit 74, is your Incra system super system router setup in metric, or can you convert it from imperial? So that's a great thing about Incra products is they all have removable scales. So you can get any scale you want metric. You can get any scale you want imperial. So it can absolutely be either one. There's nothing engraved into it. It is a movable scale because you have the adjustability to dial things in exactly where you want. Then you set the scales, then you do your cuts. So for me, if I'm off by a 32nd of an inch, I can click that, that fence, one click, 32nd of an inch, and it might even be a higher resolution than that. But once I have it set, then I can set my scale to 0. And then anytime I move it, the threads have to lock into each other, which means it can never be out of that measurement. So it'll never allow it to be in between measurements because the threads have to line up perfectly, which is one of the reasons why the system is so great, because of the repeatability. It's a fantastic setup. I do definitely plan on doing some videos on it. People ask me about it all the time. It's a remarkable system. Guy's Wood Shop, Guy Dunlap, he has some really good videos on it. And then Incra actually has some really, really, really good videos about it. Let's see. Joe Gonzalez, what brand of wireless mics do you recommend for video sound that work with the iPhone? So I use I've gone through a couple different ones. This is the one that I've settled on for now. I eventually plan on getting a better quality one, but this is really, really nice. So this is the Rode Wireless Go. This comes with another one, which is attached to the phone. It's just like this, but that's what connects to your camera. And then this one, you don't even need to have this microphone. If I was to take this out right now, there's a microphone right here in the top that you can see here. And that's how it picks up noise. I just decided that I didn't want this clipped, everywhere. So I went back to a little lavalier setup, but that's what's great about it. You can do it. And then I just take this and I can clip it to whatever I want. So that's what I use, 199 bucks. You get both. Battery lasts for a really long time. Really, really good option and really good quality audio, at least I think, for the price. Misfit 74, how much is it, the Harvey? Depends, man. Their prices, they keep running all these sales. I think traditionally it's $2,900. If you go to Rockler or Woodcraft's website, you'll see it for $4,500. I've actually had some interesting conversations with Harvey about that. Not really sure why they're selling it for that much, but they are. But if you buy direct from Harvey, it's $2,900 bucks, and they've been running all kinds of flash sales. And that's when I usually get the most comments or the most questions. They're like, hey, it's on sale for $2,200 plus, $200 shipped. I can get it for $2,400 right now. And that's usually when people buy the trigger. And they've been doing that a lot. I think right now it might even be like 25 or 26. So I would assume they're going to have some sort of Black Friday sale soon. I don't know that. I haven't asked them. They haven't told me. But I would assume they have. So we'll see. Probably, next week or something, they might run something. You can actually go to their website and sign up for their email list, because I get emails from them every single morning, literally. Every single morning and every single day right now they're running a flash sale. And here's the other cool thing. Harvey is the same company that owns Bridge City Toolworks. So they're under the same thing. So you'll get these emails from Bridge City or Harvey, and there's deals on their Bridge City planes and all of their measuring devices, as well as their table saws have been going on sale a lot lately. Their band saws, which I'm going to be honest with you, I'm actually considering putting one of their band saws in my shop because I want more resaw capacity. And I've been looking at theirs and doing some research and talking to some people that have them, and I've heard really great things about them. So I am considering that lately. I think I talked about that on the last live, but we'll see. But yes, every day I'm getting emails for like flash sale on X, flash sale on this. All right, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up here because we are now at an hour. John Fries. We just had Remembrance Day here in Canada. Thank you for your service. Thank you so much. Question, do you use metric or imperial measurements on both for building or both for building your projects? Primarily metric. I still do use imperial from time to time to get if I have a question in my mind about the scale of something, because that's the biggest thing that people have a hard time with. So I still will do that. However, and of course, man, I am just messed up. Oh, here we go. I did realize, so the best way to switch to metric, if you're thinking about it, is not have any imperial stuff around, right? Because that'll force you to do it. But one thing I found out when my buddy Patrick was here that I never really paid attention to is, so this is the fast cap tape measure. Typically, I've always used the yellow one, which is both imperial and metric. So it's a very quick reference between the two. However, what I found is because I'm trying to force myself to use metric, many times I would always revert back to imperial because it's the easiest thing for me to understand. So what did I do? I went out and bought a couple of these. One thing I didn't notice is that while this is all imperial, right? Let me see if it comes up. If you look, it says 16 feet, but it's all imperial. If you look right here, it says 16. Well, that's 16 inches. And so this has actually become very useful to me because where I struggle is the longer measurements, right? I know I want something to be 5 feet, 6 feet, 70 inches, 48 inches, 60 inches, whatever it is. It's hard to, still difficult for me to think about that and like, how many millimeters is that? Well, here's the great thing, is that I can look at this and go, hey, look, there's 64 inches. Every 16 inches, there's one. So this gives me an idea of scale. And so now that I know that, I've really started to try to force myself to not use any imperial other than a frame of reference. It's like this wine cabinet. I want it to be 60 inches, roughly, the imperial equivalent to 60 inches. So I looked at this and I'm like, how many millimeters is that? And I'm like, okay, 64 inches, that's where that is. So, okay, I want it to be about 1,500 millimeters. Now I'm gonna use that number, right? So then I have this and I can have it as a scale and I can sit down and I can look at it and go, yep, that's about how long I want it to be, 1,500 millimeters. So that has really helped. But I'd be lying if I said I didn't still use imperial to some scale, but I'm really trying hard. Here's where I'm having the biggest issue now, is that now that I'm building everything in metric, I'm trying to make plans, right? A lot of people want me to make plans for some of the things that I'm doing. I want to make plans. If it was me, I just release the plans in metric and say, get over it. However, I know that not everybody is like me and wants to use metric. So when I'm using metric, and I've hired somebody to do my plans for me moving forward, when I send them the metric measurements, those measurements may come out to seem like ridiculous measurements. Like, why would you want this piece to be 20 and 9/16 or 11/32 or 15/64? Well, that's because that's the imperial equivalent to the metric measurement that I was using. And that's where it starts to become a little bit challenging. But at the same time, I mean, there's only so much that I can do, right? If I'm gonna build in metric, it's just easier for me to get the measurements that I need. Then I'm gonna do that and we'll just worry about transferring over to imperial. Maybe it'll be so annoying to people that they'll be like, you know what, I'm just gonna use metric because my plans will be in both metric and imperial. All right, man. And here I thought that I was gonna be done, but I'm getting all kinds of stuff. Good to know about the link. I'll use it. Can't wait for the video. Thank you. So my link will be in the video when I do it, just for people that want to. And matter of fact, the link is actually in just about any video I publish now because I list all my sponsors or anybody that I have affiliate deals with. They're all down in the description. And if there's an affiliate link for something, it's on there. But it'll definitely be in that video. It's also on my website. He said, Road Mike, John Fries, hi Jason, I already answered that question, I'm sorry. In a parking lot at Home Depot, so gotta go. Thanks for the stream, appreciate your responses and info. Yes, Guy has some good videos on it. Austin Marshall, would you change anything about your ductwork? No automated gates. Automated gates would be cool, but I've heard very mixed things about automated gates. So, especially the IVAC switch ones, you have to have like 3 things to plug into an outlet, and I'm just, that's too many wires and stuff. But no, I wouldn't, well, I take that back. There's one thing I'm gonna change, but it's because of the cleaning system on the Harvey. I'm gonna put a Y coming right out of my machine with a blast gate and a hose, and that will be the hose that I use to clean out the filters, just because I'm tired of bringing my other hose to the shop. And all this will make sense when I do my video on the review, because I'm gonna go over how you go about cleaning out the filters when you need to every once in a while. Basically, you're just sucking all the air through them and getting all the super fine dust that didn't make it into the bin. But other than that, no, I love it. I thought about at one point maybe just making everything 6 inches and then dropping down to 4 at the tools, but it's working great the way it is, and that's actually the way that they told me to do it. Because I think a common misconception is that you need a gigantic pipe all the way to the tool, and that's not necessarily true. We're not going to get into that conversation though here. Brian E. Jason, thanks for the stream. Very informative. Really enjoy listening. Thank you so much for coming. What's in the bottle behind you? It's a wine. We talked about that earlier. I'm not drinking it in here. Any interest in Harvey's newer arm dust collection guard for the table saw? Austin Marshall. Actually, yes. I saw that the other day because I got it in an email, and that thing is pretty cool, and it's not just pertinent to a Harvey dust collector, which I really like. And the other thing that I really, 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 really like about it, that's a new product of theirs, I believe, and is that you can put it on the back side of the table instead of on the edge of the table, which is a huge deal breaker for me and why I don't have the saw stop one, because now I have my ductwork running down. So if I have one now that I can put on the back side, so I actually think I might try that. Not that I'm not getting good dust collection at the table saw, but I think that would make it even better. So yeah, thank you for reminding me about that. I actually forgot about it. Jacob Marquez, do you have any basic tools videos for beginners, woodworkers? Thanks in advance from Texas. I don't know if I ever did like a basic tools, like here's the things and here's why. Because as you can see behind me, you know, the tools that I have are expensive. And I have a problem. If I was to tell you, you know, and there's other people that have done this and there's nothing wrong, and I get what they're trying to do and you can't help it because the tools you have, and I still might do it. But the reason why I've held back from that is because I'm going to tell you should have a router, okay? And in that video, I'm going to be showing you a router, and that router that I have is a $600 router, and it's a Festool router. Ooh, the big bad F word, right? While most people will understand what the point that I'm trying to get across, a very large portion of the audience is going to say, oh yeah, you need a $650 router for your first router. This guy's an idiot. And that's just the way it is. And that is honestly the reason why I haven't done it. And you know, same thing applies to the jigsaw, drills, sanders. If everything I'm talking about in that video is from what arguably is, you know, one of the most expensive tool companies that there is, I'm going to catch a lot of flack for it. And on the same side of that, I don't want to be, could I write any of these companies and say, hey, send me a set of your basic tools? Or could I go down the street to Bill or John and say, hey man, let me see what tools you got in your garage. I need a router, I need a circular saw, I got to do a YouTube video. I just can't bring myself to doing that because everybody knows that that's not what I have. So then I have to deal with that side. And should I be letting, you know, what the audience is going to say? It's just certain videos, like if I can avoid that kind of stuff, I do. What I will tell you is that there's lots of great videos out there that people have done that. You know, the 10 tools you need to get started. And my 10 tools are going to be different from somebody else's 10 tools. But I personally don't have anything like. I do have some tool videos. One that you might find helpful is 5 things I wish I would have bought sooner. I think it's called like 5 tools you should buy early on or something like that. And those are some pretty basic tools. And they're just things that I wish I would have got early on. Ian, thanks for being a reliable and knowledgeable source for us to draw from. I appreciate it. Thank you so much. 16 inches is the standard spacing for ceiling joists and also studs in walls. But that's a really good point. I never thought about why that might be on there. And there you go. 16-inch on center, 16-inch ceiling joists. Now it makes sense why there's 16-inch increments on this. Interesting. And speaking of that, oh, no way, I can. With that being said, since he brought that up, I don't know if you guys will be able to see it on here, but, so this is a True 32, you know, True 32 system for cabinet stuff, but on the yellow fast cap, it has little diamonds. Well, this has little, let me see if it's gonna show up here. Little dots. You see that little dot on 32? Well, every 32 millimeter increment, so you got 64, and then it just continues to going on. That's to show you every 32 millimeter increment. They do the same thing on the yellow ones. And that's why those dots are there. People always want to know, but thank you for pointing that out. 16 inches, excuse me, I never even thought about that. That would be the common spacing, and that's probably why those are on there. 25 millimeters, almost an inch, yep. 100 millimeters is almost 4 inches, really easy, absolutely. We have discussed a solution for non-converters. Yeah, great tip on switching to metric. Going cold turkey sounds like a good motivating force. Al, hey Jason, sorry I missed you tonight. It's all right, it'll be on here pretty soon. I can bring my crappy tools over anytime. Thanks, Alex. We'll do a video then. All right, so, okay, that's all the questions that I got. I'm gonna go ahead and wrap this thing up so I can go inside and hang out with my wife. But thank you, everybody, for jumping on. I think this was actually probably one of the most large audiences that we've had so far. So hopefully this keeps getting bigger and bigger. I enjoy doing this. And the next one will be 2 weeks from today. Next week, we'll do another 5-Minute Friday, which is a segment that seems to be really good, and a lot of people like it. And you can expect me to start doing a lot of 5-minute tool overviews on that as well, because one of the most common things I get asked about is tools. And a lot of people have been recommending, hey, why don't you start talking about tools for those 5 minutes? We don't need an in-depth review. We just want to see some of the stuff that you have and what it is. So I've got a whole list of stuff. And now I guess my wife is excited for me to come inside. Do you round up or down when using millimeters? If it's between a millimeter, to me, it doesn't really matter whether I'm rounding it up or down. The only time I would really care is if it is a multiple of 32. Then usually I'm going to go with the multiple of 32. But it's such a small number, I'm just going to go with whatever I guess I'm closer to. And in most cases, you know, let's say I measure something and I'm like, okay, this is 913 millimeters. I might just say I'm going to make these pieces 900 millimeters, right? Because again, when you're talking about metric, the biggest mistake that people make, and I still need to get away from, but the biggest reason people have a problem doing is because when you think 900, you're like, well, what is that in imperial equivalent? It doesn't matter. It's not the same, right? So whatever number you do, it doesn't matter as long as you just take that, because there is no equivalent to it. Well, there is an equivalent to it, but it makes no difference. There's no basis on that. It's not like if I want it to be 900, it's going to be 900. If it's 910 and I want to cut it to 850, I'm going to cut it at 850. So yeah, all right, anyway, thanks a lot. Have fun. Thanks for the great show. Thank you. Your live chat is the same time as Rob Cosman's. I'm very sorry. You can always catch this later if it's not a convenient time. I've actually had like 5 people that have mentioned that. I've actually never watched his. I think I'd like to one of these days, but it'll always be available on YouTube. So anyways, thank you, everybody. I'm going to go inside. Have a wonderful night. If you want to see what I'm doing tomorrow, head over to Instagram, follow me there, and watch my stories. So have a wonderful night, and I will see you next time.